Overnight, Iranian forces in Syria launched at least 20 rockets on Israeli positions in the Golan Heights. According to Israeli officials, some were shot down by the so-called Iron Dome system, and some were wide of their mark. At least one ended up in neighboring Lebanon. No reports of anyone getting hurt there. But Israel's counterattack was unlike anything they've done in Syria so far.
מי שיפגע בנו, אנו נפגע בו שבעתיים. ומי שנערך לפגוע בנו, נפעל לפגוע בו קודם לכן.
The Israeli military says it hit more than 50 Iranian targets within Syria, intelligence sites, military bases, munitions facilities, and Syrian official sources say 3 people were killed, though others put the number much higher at more than 20. Now, we have coverage from both sides of the Syria-Israel border. Derek Stoffel spent the day in the area the Israeli army says was targeted by Iran. But we begin with Margaret Evans, one of the few Western reporters allowed into Syria. She has the story of what happened in Damascus from inside the city itself.
Into an already crowded theater, enter another player. One that's already paid a few visits in the past, but not like this. The barrage of Israeli missiles calling out Syria's air defenses and shaking Damascenes awake. By daylight, some Syrians were shrugging them off. We're not scared of any missiles, says this man. Israelis slept in their shelters, says another, while we stood on rooftops to watch our army's achievements. Syria's military command, too, was downplaying the impact of the Israeli action, a spokesman appearing on television. With a very high level of readiness, our air forces destroyed a large amount of Israeli missiles, he said, not admitting to any major losses. But the target of the strikes, Iranian soldiers and advisors and Shia militias trained and financed by Tehran, can be spotted up and down Syria, sent in for years now to help the president, Bashar al-Assad, win the war. He's on his way, but he's still fighting it, the plumes of smoke rising from a Damascus neighborhood called Yarmouk, testament to its ferocity. And these pictures in Idlib province to the north, where so many opposition fighters have fled, reportedly show the aftermath of a Russian airstrike, a grim reminder of the other air campaign in Syria, children so often among the dead. Bashar al-Assad's current dominant position in the Syrian civil war has just as much to do with Russian support as it does Iranian. But the prospect of a wider conflict involving Israel would be for him an unwelcome wildcard. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Damascus.
I'm Derek Stoffel in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, where you wouldn't know it from all the tourists, but this is the area that Israel's military says was targeted by Iranian rockets early this morning. That's Syria, just hundreds of meters away. Israelis here are used to the war just over the border. But the events this morning are a serious escalation. It's believed to be the first time Iran's military has ever targeted Israel directly, rather than use one of its proxies, such as Hezbollah. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Iran crossed a red line and that the Israeli response was appropriate. For months now, there has been a shadow war between Israel and Iran playing out in Syria. Israel has launched airstrikes against Iranian military bases inside Syria several times now.
We will not tolerate a military presence with offensive capabilities that is in the hands of the extremist Quds force, that is part of the Revolutionary Guard inside Syria, with a tactical capability to menace and terrorize Israeli civilians.
Israeli forces in the northern part of the country are on high alert. They were expecting that Iran would retaliate after several of its soldiers were killed in those previous Israeli strikes. The big question now, will Iran attack again? Israel's army is warning residents to be prepared. A couple of nights ago, Israel's military ordered that all of the bomb shelters in the Golan Heights, like this one here, be opened up so the public can come and use them.
We're kind of used to it. I don't think it's something out of the ordinary.
Maya Schulman has lived in the Golan Heights for 10 years. While she's not panicked about what happens next, she does
Have a plan B, because things escalate quite fast. In this region of the Middle East, they don't gradually go bad. So the responsible thing to do is to have the bag packed.
It's clear that just 2 days after Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal, tensions in the Middle East have ratcheted up. But while this escalation is concerning, neither Iran nor Israel right now appear to want an all-out war. Derek Stoffel, CBC News, in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights.
So that may be true. Israel and Iran may not want all-out war. But that shadow war Derek was talking about, it's definitely out in the open now, and it's part of a pattern of violence that's trending sharply up.
Since the agreement, Iran's bloody ambitions have grown only more brazen.
2 days ago, right after Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, an airstrike killed 15 people, including 8 Iranians south of Damascus. Analysts assume Israel was behind it, even if it rarely claims responsibility outright. Though last August, an Israeli general admitted that over a period of 5 years, his air force had carried out nearly 100 attacks in Syria. Why? Well, from Israel's perspective, it's being surrounded. In Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, and of course Syria, Iran's influence and threat potential keeps growing. Iran's most powerful proxy, Hezbollah, essentially runs southern Lebanon. And elections just this past weekend gave the group more influence over the country's politics. On Israel's southern flank, the militant group Hamas runs the Gaza Strip. That group's links to Iran have run hot and cold, but they have recently restored ties. And in Syria, Iran has gone all in. It's built militias, thousands of fighters strong, and propped up the Assad government with its own soldiers and weapons. That's a lot of hostile Iranian military assets right on Israel's border. And zooming out, Russia backs both Iran and Assad to support its interests in Syria, while behind Israel, there's the U.S. Donald Trump's cabinet is stacked with hawks, keen to put more pressure on Tehran.
They'll negotiate. Or something will happen.
So the expectation, Israel and Iran will clash again. And likely, this isn't over.